Dome. I'm sorry we're a little late starting this evening. I was just checking out the latest. Kiko Alonso's been re-signed. Just trying to get some details on his contract, and of course, Sean and I, off the air before we started the show, started talking about what everyone's been talking about for the past 2 weeks: coronavirus. So in the meantime, welcome everybody to Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Orick, here with my partner, Sean Williams. How you doing tonight, Sean?
It's going to be a good time, man. Looks like we get to see that Brady Brees matchup twice a year now.
Oh, yep. Brady Brees, and now we have
Teddy Two
Carolina.
Gloves.
Yep. Oh, man. Yeah, it's going to be. I was telling somebody this off the air. I told you this too. I think the Saints are going to be on so many nationally televised games this year. At least one Bucks Saints game. At least, well, they've always had Atlanta and New Orleans on, and now they might stick a Carolina Saints game on national television because it's just going to be must see TV.
Yeah. I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't really sweat Teddy Two Gloves going to Carolina because they're in rebuild mode.
Yeah.
And you can say to a certain extent the same thing about Tampa Bay. Obviously, it's Brady, but people that think that New England is going to just continue to march through and automatically bid themselves into the Super Bowl without Belichick and Brady, and conversely think that the addition of Tom Brady to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is going to automatically make them a Super Bowl contender or delusion.
No, it's just going to be interesting to see how Brady, because Brady hasn't learned any other offensive system since he's been in the NFL. And the Patriots are the only one that run the old Ron Earhart system that Belichick learned from Bill Parcells and the Giants in the 80s. No one else runs that offensive system. So it's going to be interesting to see how Bruce Arians uses him. Brady is not mobile. That offensive line for Tampa is not that great. Now, he does have weapons to throw to. I know I've seen O.J. Howard's pictures thrown in there, but it's not O.J. Howard, it's Cameron Brate, who is the big threat for them as a wide receiver, as a tight end.
And also, to bring this thing kind of full circle with the way that the conversation started, teams right now have no idea when they're going to be able to get Bridgewater, get Brady in the building to start learning this new stuff.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, because with Teddy over in Carolina, you're right. It's a rebuild year. That offense is still centered around Christian McCaffrey. I'm curious to see if Christian McCaffrey hits that injury wall. You know that all. Going back to the guys like Larry Johnson, Jamal Anderson, even Terrell Davis to an extent. I'm really curious to see how he shapes up after all those carries, all those touches last year.
Yeah, he's really about I'm more curious to see how this shakes out with Cam Newton because I really don't believe that you spend the money that you spent to get Teddy Bridgewater to bring him in to be a backup or compete in a quarterback competition.
No, and they already told him he can shop for a trade. So it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up. Does he go to Washington and follow his coach? I don't know.
I think that would be probably the most likely spot.
Yeah.
And I know this happened yesterday, but is Bill O'Brien trying to just work himself out of a job?
Oh my God! I have a lot of friends that I went to college with and grew up with here in the New Orleans area and stuff, and they all live in Texas now, and they were losing their minds. yesterday.
You gave away arguably the second best receiver in the league
Yeah,
for an old running back and a number two or a second round draft.
and what are you going to do with this? Are you going to try and package picks and move all the way up into the top 10, top 15, so you can go grab a CC Lamb or Judy or Ruggs? Is that what you're going to try and do to replace
You,
Hopkins? Is that
you
really?
know,
I mean,
I mean, you've still got Will Fuller, which is more than likely going to kind of
yeah,
transition into that number one
yeah,
role,
but
depending on what you do in the draft.
but the thing about the Texans is Watson was the second most sacked quarterback in the league last year. You need to upgrade that offensive line. And what are you going to do with David Johnson? Are you going to make him your feature back? Then what do you do with the other guys you got there? Are you going to
Yep.
throw? Are you getting ready to get rid of Lamar Miller, and you're going to use? I think they have. Do they have Carlos Hyde? Is that who they have?
Yes, I
Okay,
believe so.
all right. I'm not that hip on the Texans lineup.
I
I,
want to say he rushed for 1,000 yards last year for the first time in his career
yeah. So
with the Texans.
I mean, what are you doing? Are you shedding salary? Is that what you're trying to do? Because if you're trying to shed salary, then some of this makes sense. If you're trying, but you were a playoff team last year, so and you really were a meltdown against Kansas City, away from making it at least to the AFC Championship game. You came out, jumped on them early, and then you had your complete meltdown.
Yeah,
And it reminds me of the Houston Oilers 92, 93.
yeah,
92 they had that meltdown against Buffalo. 93 they get Buddy Ryan and try and win one more time. And of course, if you ever watch A Football Life, the 93 Oilers, I highly recommend it if you have not seen that. It's a great breakdown of the insanity that was that season. And a lot of it was brought on, obviously, by Buddy Ryan, him
yeah.
being there. So, I mean, I don't know what they're doing. So you have a lot of, and then on the flip side, you've got the Cardinals and the Bills, who seem to be all in this year, judging by the moves they're making. The Cardinals
Yeah,
going out, bringing in, making a trade for Hopkins. The Bills, I want to say they got screwed because I just don't like what they gave up to get Stephon Diggs. Um, but they gave up a first round pick, a fifth, and a sixth for Stephon Diggs and the Vikings' seventh round pick. I don't like that trade at all. Um, Actually, I half expected the Saints to make a trade for Stephon Diggs, just
yeah,
only because I've got bad memories of how the Saints used to approach free agency, and it used to be they used to target people who screwed them over in the postseason. Michael Haynes, Eric Allen, Brad Muster in 1990. They would always throw money at players who had big games against them in the postseason. And Stephon Diggs, of course, with the Minnesota Miracle, Minneapolis Miracle. That's another player I can see them going, oh yeah, I remember him. He had a big game against us. We should have him. He made that big play.
yeah. Stephon Diggs always played well.
Yeah. Well, but he's so temperamental, and that, I just did not see him fitting. You have to have a certain mindset to be a receiver in New Orleans, and that's you have to have no ego. And yes, Michael Thomas is an ego. I'm not denying that. But I mean, you really have to have no ego and be willing to do a lot of dirty work, a lot of a lot of decoy work, and just perform when it's called upon. You're
Yeah,
not going to be the centerpiece of the offense, and that's hard for a lot of players.
it really is.
Um, Real quick though, I mean, I know we've touched on the stuff. I want to talk about a little bit about Drew Brees' contract. We'll go back and talk about Bridgewater, AJ Klein leaving. Um, but real quick, before we get into that, because we missed that 1 week when I broke my arm that day, we're a week behind on our profiles. So real quick, let's just wrap up this with special teams, talking about Morstead, Lutz, and of course Deontay Harris. Um, I mean, to me, the three best weapons in the NFL right now.
Absolutely. I dare anyone to show me a punter that is more of a weapon than Thomas Morris.
Right.
And when it comes to the Lutz, there really hasn't been anyone that's been nearly as clutch as Lutz anywhere in the league.
Absolutely.
And I'm really anxious to see Deontay Harris take this level of play to the next level.
Deontay Harris is the one I'm worried about because I've seen this before where you have a guy has a big year as a returner and then kind of falls off. He doesn't build off of that. He's not as explosive or as dangerous because the league starts kicking away from him or doing things, and he kind of, some of them get kind of full of themselves and they're not the threat they used to be. Um, because Harris kind of came out of nowhere. And for a little while, it was scary because he would put the ball on the ground a couple of times.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to see that growth. I want to see him become a consistent weapon. That's something no kick returner we've had ever became. I mean, I love Tyrone Hughes to death, but it was 3 years, and 2 years he did very well. That third year he didn't, and then he was gone. Michael Lewis had a couple great years, but never really consistently became a home run threat every year. Of course, he was older by the time he came to the Saints. He wasn't a young player anymore. Mel Gray, same thing. Mel Gray had a good year in '87, a great year in '86. By the end of the '88 season, he's gone plan B. He went to Detroit and became a great kick returner. I want to see, like we see with Morstead, like we've now seen with Lutz, I want to see Harris become that consistent weapon, always putting us in good field position, and kickers kicking out of bounds rather than risk kicking it to him.
Yeah. I really liked the development that he showed over the course of the season this year.
Yeah.
The problems that he had with putting the ball in the ground were more towards the front end of the season than the back end.
Absolutely.
And he showed greater ability towards the back end of the season as well.
Absolutely. Oh, he and Taysom Hill were the stars of the Vikings playoff game. They were going to single handedly win that game. And that's what I want to see. Every time they kick that ball to him, I want to hear the other team say, "Oh shit, here it comes." Don't kick it to 11. Whatever you do not kick it to that guy. And when you kick it to him, oh man, you know.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to see. Okay, so free agency started with a bang. Let me just say this real quick about Lutz. Very quietly, Lutz is becoming our current our modern Morton Anderson. Um, because of my broken arm and being out of, off of work while I was recovering, I spent a lot of time watching old Saints games off of YouTube. And I'm amazed sometimes at how many kicks Morton Anderson missed early in his career. I watched some games from '82. I watched some games from '83, '84, '85, you know, '87, '86, '87, all those years. And I was amazed at how many times Morton Anderson either missed a kick or it just barely got over the crossbar, or just kind of it started to die and something and doinked in and all these things. I'm going, man, that just shows you what your memory does to you, how you remember a particular player. We all remember how Morton Anderson was in the prime of his career. We kind of forget those early years where he
Yeah.
really struggled. So, Lutz, his first year, he had that issue with the low trajectory kick. But now it's like when Lutz goes to kick, that's Mr. Automatic. When he misses, we're like, what happened? What's going on? That's not normal.
Yeah, the years that we went through with between Garrett Hartley and Lutz,
Oh, yeah.
that makes you appreciate Lutz even more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Martin Gramatica, uh, Graham, what was that kid's name who only lasted? Locker was another one.
Yeah,
Um, um, Alindo Mare was another one. I mean, that was the guy they brought in to replace Carney. Carney has a Pro Bowl season and has to come back. So, yeah, it's the revolving door of kickers. We really have three special guys on special teams that we really need to appreciate because, eh, especially kickers today, kicking extra points from the 35-yard line instead of inside the 10 like they used to. Um,
yeah,
that consistency is just amazing. Um, okay, so free agency. So far, the Saints that we know of only went after one player, Jamie Collins, thus far, the linebacker who ended up going to Detroit to reunite himself with his old defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia. Um, Players are coming off this board like there's no tomorrow. They really are. So, what it may turn out to be is that now that we have Drew Brees under contract, now that we've re signed David Onyemata, um, we've brought back Kiko Alonso, a cheaper contract. I'm sure the next one will be Janoris Jenkins. It seems to be the Saints are trying to get their financial house in order, and then they're going to go bargain shopping in free agency. Is that how it seems to you?
yeah, it really does. I expected them to be much more aggressive going after these key positions, like we've been talking about for weeks now.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised that, well, Collins going to Matt Patricia didn't shock me. I get that.
Hmm.
But I am surprised that that's the uh, only shot that's been fired.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like. I mean, I'm just looking at the inside linebackers that are in free agency right now that are left, and they've just been picked to hell. Same with guards. Um, your inside linebackers that are left. I mean, Littleton went to the Raiders. Schobert went to the Jags. Blake Martinez, who I didn't think the Packers were going to let go, Blake Martinez went to the Giants. The Bears lost their backup linebacker who replaced Trevathan earlier this year. I'm going to butcher this guy's name, but Nick Kwiatkowski, he went to the
Okay.
Raiders. Yeah, Christian Kirksey, Browns, went to the Packers. Trevathan is back with the Bears. AJ Klein went to the Bills. Um, I mean, you've got very little left
Yeah.
as inside linebackers. So that makes me think that it's very likely, you know, inside linebacker is in play now for that first round pick because they may sign like, kind of like an AJ Klein kind of inside linebacker. I'm looking at guys like, hang on here, switch over to this screen. I had a name earlier. Um, oh, look. Bob Rose's favorite player is still out there. Hassan Reddick. He and I remember that a couple years ago. He and I argued about that over and over and over
Oh
again about
yeah.
that kid. I'm like, he's an outside 3-4 linebacker. He'd be ideal in the 80s. Well, but a Nigel Bradham is somebody that, is still out there that the Saints may look at. Alec Ogletree, who the Giants just cut. Um, you know, those are the kind of guys that you're probably looking at now as your possible linebackers to bring in. Reggie Ragland's another one. That's probably the sum total of the names.
Yeah.
It, the and I don't know if they're even going to do that or not. And that's your inside linebackers. Your outside linebackers even worse, um, because now you have to replace AJ Klein, and all the top ones are gone. So you're looking at somebody maybe like if they go to the go back to the Jets, go back to the well like they did with Demario Davis, his old teammate Jordan Jenkins. Um, he's more of a weak side linebacker, but if they think they can play him on the strong side, that's somebody they could look at. Um, um, you know, Leonard Floyd. My problem with Leonard Floyd is he's really a defensive end, and we've got a bunch of guys like him on the
Yeah.
roster. Um, but
I'm really surprised that we haven't heard anything pro or con on Von Bell.
no, I think the safety market's pretty dead, and I think they're avoiding the mistake they made with who's that kid they got from Coleman, Kurt Coleman. They picked
Yeah.
up, they got him right out of the gate and paid him a lot of money, thinking the market was going to be hot, and the market was cold, and they overpaid for Coleman. I just saw Malcolm Jenkins is going to get released from the Eagles.
Yeah, I listened to a show today, and one of the topics of discussion was whether we could be looking at a reunion with Malcolm Jenkins. And I agree with what Fox said about him, or what Deuce Wyndham said anyway. I think that Jenkins is going to be probably in the 13, $14 million range. And the Saints aren't going to pay that. Now, if he
No,
can come off that price, that certainly could be an option. But
the only way, yeah. No, go ahead.
I wouldn't be opposed to the idea because I think, in the grand scheme of things, the player that the Malcolm Jenkins that left here to go to the Eagles,
Mm-hmm.
and the player that's leaving the Eagles now are two drastically different players.
Well, and here's the thing with Jenkins. Let's see if he lasts through the draft, till after the draft. If he does not get any serious offers until after the draft, then his price tag comes down. Then I think a reunion is likely. Just for his leadership in that secondary, what they thought they would get McColeman.
Yeah,
Somebody who's going to organize the secondary, somebody who's familiar with, because remember, um, damn it, the defensive coordinator for the Saints.
uh, why'd you ask me?
I know. I'm drawing a blank on him. Anyway, he was the secondary coach in 2009 when the Saints went to the Super Bowl. He and Malcolm Jenkins know each other, had a good relationship. So I mean, it's not inconceivable. I wouldn't be opposed to a reunion with Jenkins. I think he would help a guy like Marcus Williams a lot. Um, it's just it's Von. The key is to get Von Bell in the building, and let's
Yeah,
see if Jenkins lasts after the NFL draft, because I think that's going to be the determining factor. Because I think you're going to see a lot of veterans get. I mean, a lot of money got spent, a lot of players got picked up. But once you get past those first couple of days, now it's going to slow down a little bit, and you're going to start seeing some of the older players that are going to sit out there for a little while. And when we get into April, it's all draft, and that's what they're focusing on. And so after the draft, that's when you start looking at free agents again. Okay, where can I fill in my holes I didn't get in the draft?
Yeah.
Um,
So tell me, do you have the details on the deal for Brees?
no, I know it's a 2-year deal for what was it, 50 million?
Yeah, that's what I heard was 2
Yeah,
years. 50.
2 years, 50 million. I read some stuff and I did not see a breakdown. The only thing I did see was that um, it was about what he signed for 2 years ago. Same thing.
Yeah.
Um, as far as, and I think they got that out the way because they need to know how much money they're going to have to play with. And unfortunately, and I can hear Matt Stafford screaming from here, but unfortunately, all this happens as free agency started. So the Saints are late getting their financial house in order to know how much money they're going to have to spend to sign free agents. Um, so I think the first couple things you're going to have to look at now is you're going to have to start looking at receivers because I think the linebackers are pretty much picked over. You can sign depth, but as a starter, it's going to be hard to find people. Guard is gone. So all you Andres Pete haters, Andres Pete is very much in play to come back to the Saints.
Oh, I fully expect him to be that.
Because the upgrades from Pete are either franchised or off the board. I was watching that Detroit guard, Glasgow, to see if we can get him. I thought he would be an upgrade. He's gone. All the guys at 30, Sharif, the top guys, they're franchise tag. So, the guards that are left are either old or are downgrades from Pete. And I can hear people laughing at that. Oh, Pete's garbage. Anyone's better than Pete. Well, would you want to replace Pete with, let's just throw out a name, um, Mike, oh man, I am going to butcher these. Lupatili, Lupati, the guard from the Seahawks, 33 years old.
Yapati.
What is it?
Yapati.
Thank you. 33 years old, declining player.
Used to be a Cardinal, if I'm not mistaken.
Is he now? Well, he was. I don't know if he got signed yet or not.
No, I'm saying he was the Cardinal before he became the Seahawks.
Yeah. Denzel Good, a guard offensive tackle from the Raiders, 29 years old, is a backup player. Tom Compton from the Jets, 31 years old. I mean, there's nothing left out there. Unless you tip into the restricted free agent market to get younger players, but you're really not getting any upgrades. These are all downgrades from Pete. So there's no guards left. Yeah, you can go draft one in the first round, but do you really want to do that?
No.
I mean, it's so I think Andres Pete coming back is very real. Yeah, you've got what's his name, the kid we got from Minnesota last year.
Easton.
Yes, you've got Nick Easton.
And there again, something that I heard on that program this afternoon, I believe that Deuce Wyndham was the one that put it forth. Nick Easton, more than anything, was brought in to see if we could get that upgrade from Pete, and I don't. There was no significant upgrade involved with Easton over Pete. So
people like to think there was, but there really wasn't. You're right. You're right.
there. You can hate Pete all you want to. He's one of the most versatile linemen that we have, and the only, which is significant, but the biggest knock on him is health.
That's exactly it. He does he make mistakes? Yes, he makes mistakes. but he gets hurt a lot too, which makes it worse because if you're dependable, your mistakes can be overlooked, but you're not even dependable. So, my opinion, I think the Saints' first outside free agent they bring in that they spend some money on is going to be a wide receiver. Um, so just because they don't want to be stressed out or locked into getting that receiver in the first round, I think they'd like to get a receiver in the third or fourth round. So now we're looking at players like Rashard Perryman, maybe Robbie Anderson. That's a lot of money I think he's going to demand. Demarcus Robertson from the Chiefs. Um, maybe one of these restricted free agents that they have out there. I know some people want Philip Dorsett. I just look at Philip. I know the Saints really liked him a long time ago when he was coming out in the draft. I think Philip Dorsett he's just it's like bringing in a faster Traquan Smith.
Yeah,
You're not going to. He does not produce game in and game out.
no,
Um,
and you hit the nail on the head. It's all about consistency, and
right.
uh, I've said this from the beginning of time.
Hmm.
Uh, Long term and long range success in the NFL is not about having the most dynamic players. It's about getting consistent contributions from those star players.
Right.
You look at the body of work that Drew Brees puts together over the course of the season.
Hmm.
Yes, he throws picks, but look at the touchdowns that he throws. Look at the way he leads this team
2 years in a,
consistently.
two
It's
years in a
not
row.
a big game and then a 3 week drought.
Yeah, 2 years. That's what you had with with uh, with Aaron Brooks. You had that wild, inconsistent play. No, I mean 2 years in a row, you've had Brees throw under what 6 interceptions
Yeah,
throughout the Minnesota game. I mean, you're looking at historic numbers as far as numbers of interceptions. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think getting some of these guys, Emmanuel Sanders at 33 years old, I'm worried you're getting a Ted Ginn kind of player, better hands than Ted Ginn, but a guy who is probably not going to give you 16 games. Oh, and I think if I'm AJ Green, I'm going to Mike Brown's house and setting that bitch on fire. I mean, yeah, you franchise this poor bastard, 32-year-old player, has not played a full season and a season and a half, and now you're just being mean. You're going to
Yeah,
franchise tag this guy just so he can't go somewhere else and finish out his career as a winner. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, he's played one full season since 2015. I'm looking at his stats now. Um, One full season since 2015. That's 5 years. It'll be 5 seasons this fall. And you franchise tag this poor guy just
You
so he
know,
wouldn't
I
go
don't know
somewhere
what
else.
the contract status is of this guy, but before he hangs him up forever, I want to see him back in New Orleans. And I think you're rocking his colors tonight,
Oh, talking about Ingram?
Ingram.
Yeah,
I want to see him come back and break that record.
I do too. I do
And,
too.
and I think that the dynamic of that offense goes up to a whole new level when it involves him. Now, that's nothing against Kamara or Latavius Murray or anybody else. It's it was a noticeable difference over the season.
I think you saw it when it came to pass blocking. Especially in the Atlanta game and the Minnesota games. That's where I think Ingram is really missing because um, I think picking up the blitz. I watch again while I'm convalescing over my broken arm. I watched the Saints Rams game from 2018, the regular season game. There's a play. It's inside the red zone where and it's a play before they score a touchdown. But the kid they picked up in the trade right before from the Jaguars, right before they went before they played the Saints. I can picture it. Who is it?
Dante Fowler.
Dante Fowler. Thank you. Dante Fowler comes in clean on a blitz from the outside, and Ingram comes in and flips him head over heels. He tags him at the knees and flips that dude. And you even hear Aikman go, "Oh my God, what a block!" It was that's the kind of stuff you're talking about.
And I look back over the course of his career. He came in as a Heisman Trophy winner, and there was that level of expectation, and he was fair on a probably not great team. But what impressed me the most about Ingram was the type of work that he put in to become a better receiver, to become a better pass blocker, to become a better teammate. And that's what I thought you lost by him going to Baltimore.
And it didn't help that Kamara was injured. When Kamara got injured, and yes, Murray looked great as the bell cow back when Kamara wasn't in the game at all because he was out. But I felt that you never got that dynamic that you got with Ingram and Kamara, where you could just alternate them on every other play or whatever, or every other drive, and not lose anything. I mean, you're getting production the whole time. It seemed like when they were trying to alternate between Kamara and Murray, Murray might have a couple good plays, but then he kind of struggled on things. So I don't know. I'm hoping you see more of that dynamic this year. Um,
I'm hoping that Kamara can stay healthy, so we don't have to spend another season sitting back.
You can't overuse him.
20.
I mean, that's what we learned. To me, that's what we learned this year. You cannot overuse him. You can't make him the bell cow back that a lot of people wanted to do 2 years ago. You have to limit his touches in a game. I kept saying early part of the season, lesser Kamara is a good thing, and people are like, you're crazy. No, man, because as the season wears on, you want Kamara fresh. You don't want him approaching that 300 touches by the end of the season. You need to keep his touches down so he is more explosive when he gets out there. That's what we saw in 2017. We saw less of it in 2018, obviously, because of Ingram's 4-game suspension. But that's kind of what I want to see. I wanted to see Murray get more touches and so forth to try and get him going in this offense, but learning that you're not going to touch the ball 25 times a game. You may touch it 15 times a game. Make those 15 count.
Yeah, and the only way to accomplish that is to have that transition back that works in tandem.
Yeah. Here's the other thing, another free agent spot that very quietly, we don't have anything. Because Zach Line retired, we don't have a fullback. And this offense needs a fullback. I know fullbacks are dying breeds, but, in this offense, we like to have a guy who can block, a guy who can catch out of the backfield, and you really don't have much out there. I'm looking at some of these free agent listings. They don't even list a fullback. It's hilarious.
Like you said, that's a vanishing breed in the National Football League.
Yeah. So where do you go to go get
somebody
a fullback?
Follow Mike Allstott. See if he's
Yeah. Or go dig up Mike Carney.
I think Carney got in trouble with the law, didn't he?
I don't think he did. Maybe he did.
No, wait a minute. That was Heath Ed.
That was who?
Heath Evans.
Yes, Heath Evans did. Heath Evans did. But no, I had that old Dallas game on too the other day. That was from 2006. That's just that it's such a unique game because we'd never kicked Dallas's ass like that before. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Not since '89 that I can remember where they shut them out 28-0. But that's when Dallas Jimmy Johnson's first game in the whole bit. But I'm just talking about as far as a game with a lot of implications playing in Texas Stadium, the old Texas Stadium. Yeah, beating them there. Oh man, that was just an enjoyable game. Um, One other position I want to talk about: tight end. Do you see? There was some ideas that maybe Jimmy Graham was going to come back, and of course Graham signed with the Bears, which he's chasing money now. Um, do you see the Saints bringing in another tight end to team up with um, Jared Cook?
I don't.
Okay.
I look at this as being a transition year for Josh Hill. We're either going to see him step up to the point that we can depend on him and use
Hmm.
him, or they're going to cut ties with him. I do.
Well, here's the thing with Josh Hill. You have no fullback now. Josh Hill can play an H-back. So he does
True.
serve a purpose. I'm curious to see what happens with Eric Ebron. And I'm only throwing that name out there because he had that great year with Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck retires. Ebron disappears again. Now the Colts don't want him because they've got what they feel is an upgrade. Ebron's one of these guys who's never really panned out anywhere else. He had that one great year. I know they were interested in Tyler Eifert last year with the Bengals. I'm
Yeah.
curious if the Saints try and get Eric Ebron as kind of a second tight end, maybe to kind of upgrade the receiving core that way. Run two tight end formations um, where they were pass receivers as well as blockers. I'm That's a name I'm going to kind of watch.
All right. Um,
I'm just throwing that out there.
I don't see Peyton being real fond of running a two tight end. Now, I'm not saying that he won't.
Hmm.
I mean, you got to go with what you got, obviously.
Right.
But I think that that's going to be down the list of what they're looking for or looking to gain in free
Well,
agency.
yeah, and they wouldn't spend a lot of money on him.
Yeah.
They would not spend a lot of money on him. It's just the idea of looking at the receivers in free agency, knowing how much money you're probably going to have to spend if you don't go and try and get you know, one of the discount receivers. And that's why I got the bargain thing on here because they are bargain shopping. But
Yeah.
if you go and get a receiver like who are some of the names I had on earlier? I'm sorry, I got to keep changing different screens to get to the right ones. But if you go and sign Brashard Perryman, um, or you sign the Chiefs receiver I just had a minute ago, Demarcus Robinson. Somebody is a slot guy. I can see them possibly looking at a tight end to be okay. If I go to four wides, or go to the 11 package, with one tight end, three receivers. Maybe I line up Cook outside as a receiver and stick Ebron on the edge of the line. It's just that's the kind of things I can see them doing based on what's out there and what they can do.
Yeah.
You know, um, but yeah, I agree, Calvin. I think Ebron would be a steal because I think this is going to be his last stop. If he would have come here, it'd be his last stop. Calvin came in late. He said re-sign Bell. We talked about that at the beginning. I think the Saints are waiting to see what the safety market looks like before they re-sign Bell. They don't want to overpay Bell. but they want him back. They just want to see how much money he's going to command out there in the open market. And you don't really see safeties moving. You're seeing offensive linemen move, and you're seeing big trades for players like a Hopkins and so forth. But you're not really, and some linebackers, they pick the linebackers over pretty good. Um, Sean, have you heard this one? Have you heard that the rumored trade between the Bucks and the Rams sending the Rams would send Brandon Cooks and Todd Gurley to the Bucks? Have you heard
No,
this trade? It's been out there in on social media for a little while, a
I
couple
would say
days.
that would be highly unlikely.
Oh well,
Um,
yeah. I mean, it would be the Rams shedding salary.
well,
Uh,
I mean, you bring Gurley in, and you're strapping to a rock that's going to sink fast in terms of his contract.
yeah, right. And Brandon Cooks on that offense. You'd have a small receiver with two big ones. And where does he fit? Are you shipping out Chris? Chris, who was it? I'm sorry. I have to go back and look at my
Evans,
Bucks receivers.
Mike Evans.
No, not Mike Evans. The little number 12,
Yeah, Godfrey.
Godfrey. Thank you, Godfrey. Are you shipping Godfrey out because that's basically Cooks' role? I just can't see that happening. You know, but that's the rumors floating out there because the Rams are strapped for cash and they have
Yeah,
no first round pick. They don't have a first round pick for a couple of years. I'd be surprised that happens. I think Brady's that big signature.
yeah,
Um, Colts got Philip Rivers and all his interceptions,
yeah,
so I'm wondering where Jameis Winston goes to. If Brady goes to the Bucks, what happens to Jameis Winston?
yeah. Because there's no way you're bringing Tom Brady in to back up famous James.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think if I'm James Winston, I'm packing my locker tonight.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you're now going to go and are you going to go try and back up or compete for a job with the Bears? Is that where you're going to go? I mean, that's pretty much his only options for a starting job.
James is not a bad quarterback. He's just erratic.
Well, you said Winston.
Yeah,
Well, he had LASIK surgery, so maybe he fixed his eyes. I don't know. It reminds me of the '68 America's game, the '68 Jets. Philbin, the defensive lineman for the Jets, said he yelled at Joe Namath after Joe Namath threw 5 interceptions one game. He says, "We're wearing green next week, Joe. Throw to the guys in green." I mean, just and that's kind of how I look at. Though he's nowhere near Namath's ability, Jameis Winston right now with that. Um,
and
so Anna asks AJ Klein, did we see that coming? I kind of did.
yeah,
I,
I think that had someone not dealt for Klein, that he would have been a casualty before training
yeah,
camp.
yeah. I don't think the Saints. I think the Saints were interested in moving off from him last year, and they're willing to let him test the market. The problem is they don't have an upgrade behind him.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that's what's kept him on the roster for as long as he's been there. They like him, but not at the money they were paying for, not the kind of player he was. They
and
really
again,
wanted
not
to
the type of
upgrade.
good consistency that he should.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm leaning more and more now towards I think the Oklahoma linebacker Murray. If the Saints stay at 24, that's where they're targeting. That's who's going to replace Klein if they stay there, and if he's still on the board.
Yeah,
Um, cornerback is still an option, but I think they're going to have to upgrade the linebacker position in the draft because they're just you're looking at, and Calvin said, "The hell with all those washed up vets." But that's all you've got left out there now is older vets. You're going to bring in another guy who is very average at best. You're not an impact player, not a starter. Um, so I think Janoris Jenkins is the next thing they address. What are they going to do with him? Are they going to renegotiate his deal to reduce that $11 million cap to give them even more?
The only way that he stays is if they redo the deal.
Eli Apple, stay or go?
See you later.
Yeah. I think I don't know if he's going to get any offers, but the only way I see him coming back is if, once again, like Jenkins, after the draft, nobody touches him. Then he may come back and replace PJ Williams or someone like that.
Yeah.
Well. Oh, you never paid the bills. You know that, huh? We always start talking. We kind of skip over the bills.
We want to thank everyone for joining us tonight on Under the Dome. You can follow us on Facebook on the Under the Dome podcast page. You can follow us on Twitter. He is at 79 Saints. I am at Drew's Dad 3721. And on a personal note, I hope that everyone out there is not just surviving but thriving in this crazy world that we live in. Hope that everyone stays safe. And
it's tough. I don't know how everybody's doing as far as work related. I'm in New Orleans. We're one order away from lockdown, where they're not going to have anybody out on the streets. I'm working from home because I can, but it's tough so I feel you guys. If any of you guys got let go or on furlough or whatever they want to call it until this thing gets straightened out, I don't know. I feel for y'all. I really, really do. My kids are in the same boat. They all work college student kind of jobs. Two of them are in the restaurant business, and that's the ones that are impacted. And that was their money. It pays their rents. It pays their spending money. And
I would like to say this. I would highly encourage everyone to support their local businesses.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely.
There's
do the takeout.
In our town, there's restaurants that are parts of statewide, nationwide chains. They're going to be okay because they have funding that they can bring to bear to deal with an issue like this. But there's other businesses that are not, and this is going to hit them really, really hard. I encourage everyone to support their local business.
The closest I can come to any of this is going through Hurricane Katrina. In those days afterward with limited menus and places not being open and store shelves being still empty because they hadn't had a chance to restock anything. The difference is we don't know when this is going to end. There's no spaghetti model that tells us when this is going to come on shore. When do we start trying to get back to normal? We don't know. And that's the hardest part about this whole thing. So believe me, we're both praying for everybody out there. Take care of yourselves. Support your local business as best you can. Get out where you can. I mean, today I went to the hospital for my follow-up post-op procedure where they checked my arm and I got a huge scar, the whole bit. And I went to the hospital and it's like going to the airport. I had a TSA table waiting for me. Walk in, they took my temperature, they did a little checklist on to see if I was carrying, and they wipe everything down. My wife couldn't even come with me. She had to stay on the other side of the table. I'm the one who had to walk into the office. So yeah, it's a bizarre world, and in New Orleans, it's ground zero, like for coronavirus. So Y'all take care of yourselves out there.
We love y'all. We thank y'all so much for being a part of what we do. And just like when there's a hurricane, just like when 9/11 took place, we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, and yep. The draft is what? Oh, let me show you this real quick. The draft is about 6 weeks away. I haven't seen my Mike Detillier ad yet, so I can get my Mike Detillier book. But I bought my Wendy's draft thing, so I'm getting more and more up to speed on players. Um, I think we'll start next week, kind of breaking down draft positions as we talk about free agency. Still, we'll break down draft positions, talk about the players that the Saints should look at. Of course, it's going to change depending on the free agents, but we'll break down and see where the Saints should look at heavily. Who do we think they will take in that first and third round pick?